1996 saw the release of Warp's Enemy Zero on the Sega Saturn, directed by Kenji Eno, whose previous release was 95's D on the 3DO, later released in 1996 as D's Diner Director's Cut, a very atmospheric FMV Gothic-styled adventure game. Enemy Zero is the second part in a loose trilogy of games starring Laura, the protagonist, although she is a different person in each game. The final entry was 1999's D2 on the Dreamcast. Check out my full review for this game in the video description. This was a mixture of different elements, mixing in the adventure stylings and puzzle solving of D with interactive FMV sequences and real-time first-person action sequences in this science fiction horror tale of survival. In a nutshell, the story puts you in the shoes of Laura, a woman aboard the Aki spacecraft who's heading back to Earth when an emergency signal is activated, waking you up from cryosleep. You've now lost your memory and the ship has been intruded by a group of invisible aliens. So it's up to you to eliminate them, regain your memory, and make contact with the surviving members of your crew. It's kind of a big old ode to Ridley Scott's Alien in more ways than one, without ruining an important plot twist later. When asked about the idea behind the game's plot, Kenji is quoted as saying, "I wanted to ask the question, why do human beings exist? That's why the game evolved into something with an enclosed space and invisible enemy, so that you would be forced to think about your own existence." Enemy Zero's development cycle was just over 9 months, but it was a rocky road to say the least. Originally programmed and designed as a PS1 game, the entire game was switched to an exclusive Sega Saturn version mere 2 weeks before its big reveal. Kenji switched it up after being pretty dissatisfied with the way Sony handled D's PS1 pre-orders and the fact that all third-party games advertising needed to be approved by them. It rubbed him the wrong way. At a big PlayStation Expo, the PS1 logo came up at the end of the demo and then morphed into the Sega Saturn logo. His ultimate defiant FU to Sony. He later went on to say after the show, "The PlayStation and Saturn aren't that different, so moving Enemy Zero to Saturn wasn't too difficult."
Sega Saturn! この男、また人騒がせなものを作ってしまった。このソフトは事件になる。エネミーゼロ。
Gameplay, like mentioned earlier, is a combination of two styles. In the adventure FMV sequences, which are enclosed rooms safe from death, you'll get to investigate the ship and pick up items that you can use, like comms devices, a save recorder, a rechargeable gun, keycards, and much more. You'll also often have access to a VEX computer network, which gives you access to various functions, a video phone to call other crew members, a database with crew files and logs, etc., and information about the ship and a map, which I suggest you draw out on a piece of paper to make navigating easier, as you can only access this from the save rooms. Puzzle solving is often about finding codes to access doors, boxes, or to use to link up and chat. Making your way through the ship is done in real-time FPS style. This is where you can get hunted by the invisible aliens, and yes, they are 100% invisible, and you'll have to rely solely on sound alone to track them, or avoid them, and time a shot to kill one. It only takes one shot to kill anything. This is by far the most intense part of the game. Hearing the beeping from your radar as something gets closer but not being able to see it is truly unnerving. Fortunately, there is a VR simulator you can try before you start the game to practice this technique and how to listen to get the timing right for your shot. And you should definitely try this out before starting. This is found on disc 0 of this 4-disc game, and it also includes a game intro and a little mini documentary about the Warp staff. The game has 3 difficulty modes: normal, easy, and beginner. Its difficulty really comes down to the action, and if you mistime anything, you are dead. Plus the fact that, to a lesser degree, is the limited amount of saves you can have depending on the difficulty level. For easy, for example, you get 33 saves. It takes 3 energy off your save device to save a game, and it's more the higher you go, which adds another level of stress onto this game. Here's what Kenji had to say about the game's difficulty. "It's a difficult game, but that's the good part of Enemy Zero, you know? When you eat curry, it's spicy, and that's why it's curry. That's why it's good." So it's the same with Enemy Zero. The whole experience you gain from playing a difficult game is valuable. If I had the chance to make it all over again, I would probably make it the same way, because that's the feeling I wanted to deliver. I have no regrets about Enemy Zero, and the difficulty is what Enemy Zero is. That's the important part of the game. Music and sound, like all his games, were very important, not only to atmosphere, but like seen here, also to actual gameplay. The sound effects are excellent and convey the drone and emptiness of the ship environment. Voice acting, like any 90s game, is hit and miss. Some of your crew's delivery are amateur hour.
I'm so glad you're okay. So, your memory isn't too clear either, is it?
While others are actually surprisingly decent.
Forget it. If we manage to survive, I'll get all the details.
Laura is mute for the whole game, just like all Kenji's Laura incarnations. However, when reloading games, she gives a voice recording recap of the situation, which I think is pretty cool. She's voiced by indie band Luscious Jackson's Jill Cuniff. Her delivery is robotic, like she's reading the script for the first time.
The thing that attacked Parker was unidentifiable due to the camera's inability to capture its form. I will continue with further investigation.
It's not original Resident Evil bad, but just could have been much better. Music is by movie music composer Michael Nyman, who did the movie Gattaca, an excellent sci-fi noir movie. It's moody piano pieces with intense orchestral work, all recorded at England's Abbey Road Studios, with 2 CD soundtracks available separately. Here's Kenji talking about getting Michael to compose for the game. I like Michael Nyman a lot, and I like his soundtracks, so I was thinking that it would be awesome if I could get him to do the music. I think the juxtaposition of the game's aesthetic and his music make it a perfect match. I wanted to get him really bad, and then there was a big earthquake in Kobe, Japan in 1995, and Michael Nyman was donating pianos to schools in the city. When this earthquake happened, he said he wanted to check out how the pianos that he had donated were doing, so he came to Japan. When I found out that he was in Japan, I invited him back to my hotel room to try and convince him for 6 hours to come work with me. So at the end, Michael was like, okay, I'll do it. Just let me go back to my room. Like all of Kenji's games, it's an experience as much as a game. Its slow burn narrative style and short bursts of nail-biting action is a far cry from games we generally play today. And that's not a bad thing. At the time, it also sold quite well, with over 600,000 copies sold, with a special 20 copies for over $2,000 each, and Kenji hand delivering these to buyers personally. Possibly the coolest special edition ever. Don't pass over this science fiction horror gem. No game has ever made me so apprehensive about walking down a corridor, never mind hearing the beeping of a radar pop out of nowhere. It's pure horror at its best.